Geography can be integrated into other aspects of the IB diploma as a whole, and doesn't have to just be limited to its own subject. In this video, we're going to look at how geography can be involved in theory of knowledge, CAS, and the extended essay. Geography is part of both the human sciences and the natural sciences areas of knowledge. Many geography topics could be real-life situations that you can use in both your presentation and the essay. I'm going to give you a couple examples of how geography can be applied to the essay using the May 2020 essay titles. For this first title, we could, for example, explore sustainability and future possibilities for sustainable development. We could also explore technocentric and neoliberal approaches to development, for example. With this second title, we could, for example, refer to spatial patterns. There is a difference between describing what the pattern is and actually giving a reason for it and therefore explaining it. We could also explore the difference between describing freak weather and providing climate change, for example, as an explanation for it. For this third title, we could explore human rights with the emancipation of women, or minority groups, for example. We could also refer to nationalist viewpoints on geopolitics. For this fourth title, we could use the greenhouse effect as an example of an analogy. The greenhouse effect analogy can be used to help people understand global warming, but it can also be used to explain it and therefore justify it. By referring to it as a greenhouse, we're basically explaining that the gases in the atmosphere stop radiation from escaping, and therefore the Earth warms up. For this fifth title, we could explore the plate tectonic theory, which is a theory that only came together thanks to the combination of many different theories. We could also look at urban models. Human systems are way too complex to be studied and explained with one model only, so most of the time, multiple models are used to study urban environments. For the sixth title, we could, for example, use the hydrological cycle, which would be agreeing with this claim. However, we could also refer to climate change modeling for current climate and future climate to go against this claim. Geography can fit very well into CAS, especially with the service aspect. Learning outcome number 6, for example, demonstrate engagement with issues of global significance, can be explored very well with geography. Also, SDGs can definitely be applied to CAS. In my school, for example, we had Fair Trade, UNICEF, and Water Aid groups, and all three of these groups use the SDGs quite frequently. Some students in the grade below mine also started an IST environment group in which they explained the SDGs and their significance. So that could be another very good application of the SDGs. So I didn't do my extended essay in geography, I did mine in biology, but I can still give you some general advice on how to handle your extended essay. My first piece of advice would be on time management and deadline. The extended essay requires you to have excellent time management, especially because it's occurring on top of all of your classes. In my school, they set internal deadlines to make sure that students weren't falling behind. If your school isn't doing that, I would recommend that you set those deadlines for yourself to make sure that you stay on track. My second piece of advice would be on the data. You will be collecting data from either primary sources, secondary sources, or both. For my extended essay, for example, I did a biology experiment, and so I collected this data myself. However, many people think that experiments can only be performed for extended essays in science subjects. Actually, that's not really true. You can collect your own primary data if you want to in geography as well. One of my classmates collected his own data by interviewing people on his subject, so it's definitely possible. It's perfectly fine to use data that you haven't collected yourself, as long as you cite and reference it properly. My third piece of advice would be on organization. For the extended essay, you really need to be organized, because otherwise you'll be overwhelmed by the workload and you won't finish on time. It's also very important to be organized for your referencing. Any information that you use in your extended essay that isn't cited or referenced and that isn't yours will be considered plagiarism. To be able to properly cite and reference all of your sources, you need to be very organized with all the research and all the notes that you're making. My last piece of advice is going to be on the 3 reflections that you have to write. You have to write a reflection at the initial stage, at the interim stage, and then one at the final stage just before your viva voce. The viva voce is a sort of interview that you will have with your extended essay advisor to just reflect on the process of the extended essay. Your reflections should be descriptive, analytical, and evaluative. In your initial reflection, you will talk about any ideas that you may have on the topic, as well as potential research questions. You may also comment on your general plan and approach, and any initial research that you may have conducted already. In the interim reflection, you should mention any changes in your plan, as well as the refining of your research question if that happened. It's also very interesting to talk about your revolving thoughts on the topic, and you should definitely mention any challenges encountered. The viva voce reflection is where you should express your final thoughts on the extended essay process. You should mention what you've learned during this process, as well as any potential discoveries that you've made. You should thoroughly evaluate your research process and mention any improvements that you could have brought to it. You may also wish to comment on any additional questions that you may have after having carried out your extended essay. That's about all the general advice I can give you on the extended essay, but I would recommend that you ask your teacher for more geography-specific advice if you're doing your extended essay in geography.